Good evening and welcome to the February 9th regular meeting of the Hillsborough Town Board of Commissioners. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will not read the public charge, but it is in the printed agenda. And next on the agenda for tonight is audience comments not related to the printed agenda. And we have one person signed up to speak, and that is Orange County Schools Board of Education Chair Will Atherton. Will, come on up and welcome.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Will Atherton. I'm on the school board. I'm here tonight as an individual board member, but CTE is a very important program within our schools. That's career technical education. And I just wanted to come tonight and thank the town of Hillsborough. And I have a presentation from that student, and I just wanted to read a couple of things they said about their experience over our summer career academy. And this was an internship in the Department of Public Space and Sustainability. This is the company's expectation. The expectations were always get what I was told to get done to the best of my ability and always in a timely manner as possible. They then had what I like most. The best thing about doing the job is just being outside and enjoying our town. Meeting new people as they walk by while I'm working is always fun. Being able to step back when I'm done and be proud of all the work I've spent up to a couple of days getting done never got old. Advice for someone pursuing this career. My best advice is to be prepared. There's a sense of responsibility in a town like Hillsborough to keep such a high level of maintenance, which we can have some pressure on. That being said, it's still important to note that a job like this can be really fun. The environment may be perfect for the right person. Then we ask them what they plan to do in the future. This is the last one. My plans are not set in stone as of now. I've had a good taste of what working in the outdoors is like, and I plan to continue a career in agriculture or environmental conservation. So again, thank you. We really appreciate the partnership. And I just wanted to read this to show it really makes an impact on our students, especially them getting real work and especially getting to see it in our own community. So thank you.
Thank you, Will. We appreciate the feedback and Stephanie appreciates the opportunity to engage with students in that way. So
We're definitely looking forward this summer as well. Thank y'all. Have a good night.
thank you.
Very appropriate for budget discussion.
All about time.
Because we always pride ourselves on a high level of service to the town. And glad the student recognized that.
Okay, number 3, any proposed changes to the agenda?
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you, Kevin.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving right along, consent agenda, hearing no changes previously to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very much. Yeah, moving on to the regular agenda. The first item tonight is the Adrian F. Thompson Project Preliminary Resolution. And Dave McCole, Finance Director, is going to present on that.
Good evening, board. The item we have before you is a preliminary resolution for the Adrian Thompson project. The project is to renovate and expand the Adrian Thompson building. It also includes a new welding shop, stockroom for inventory, office space, and also additional bathrooms. The resolution, within this resolution, it references that we will be borrowing $8.5 million for this project. And we'll be fully financing at $8.5 million. It also makes references to Webster Bank. They had the best proposal out of the two that we received. It's a 20-year loan at 4.38%. So that's also referenced in there for you to approve as part of the resolution. And last but not least, it also gives the authority to myself and Eric, the manager and the finance director, to move forward all the necessary documents to bring the financing to fruition. And with that said, there's also what happens after this is we're all set to be on the LGC agenda for this loan. It's the March agenda. And then shortly after that, I'll be coming to the board again for the March 9th meeting for what's called the bond order resolution. And shortly after that, we'll have our closing documents that Eric and I will have to sign. And then shortly after that, we'll have our proceeds in our hand and we'll be starting the project. So with that said, I respectfully request that you approve this resolution, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have concerning
Thank you,
the
Dave.
resolution.
We'll start over here, and you, Kathleen, I have a question.
I don't, I'm just jumping for joy that we're doing this. Yay. It's scary considering when we first heard about it and it was projected to be at 2 million. I am grateful that it didn't exceed 10 million with everything that's gone up, but, anytime you want that motion, I'll move it.
Are there any questions? Matt, do you have a question?
Not a question, but ditto what you just said, Kathleen, but for a different reason. One of the very first few months I was commissioner back in 2018, Eric so graciously set up a bunch of tours around town and of our town facilities, and this was one of them. And to walk all throughout the building, especially where the welding was occurring, and employees saying, you know, the difference is keep the door open in the winter and the summer where, you know, I'm exposed to the elements and it may not be healthy, or, you know, expose myself to dangerous fumes and that sort of thing. And this will go a long way to making sure our employees have, you know, a safe working environment. Very happy.
Thank you, Matt. Any other, we got a long night. Any other questions or comments before we accept an option? Eric?
Oh, just three rapid things. It also, and this may have been in the information, included raising the floor, I believe, a foot because of course, the flooding. So appreciate adjusting. So that helps with resiliency. It includes a reimbursement. The board already approved the reimbursement resolution, so we'll be getting back, I think, between $700,000 and $800,000, which when you look at the our days of cash on hand, we need. So that's going back to the bank. And also want to thank Emily Jessup. She's the attorney from Sanford Holzhauser. They've served as our bond attorneys and have been phenomenal. And their attention to detail is remarkable as you go through these details. So in addition to Dave's expertise, Emily's here. There's more detailed questions.
Thank you. Eric. Great context. We're all looking forward to it. Kathleen, do you want to make that? motion?
I move to approve this as expeditiously.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dave.
They'll finally get bathrooms.
Okay, moving on to item B, fiscal year 27-29 budget and financial plan framing. Eric.
There's a PDF of the budget message down there.
No, you're not ready for this one yet. I'm sorry.
I was just excited I had something other than PowerPoint to show you. That's pretty rude. Thank you. Yeah, let's shrink this up. Let me shrink this up so you can sort of follow. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this one. Oh, okay. And click.
Or
Sure.
a little more.
Yeah, let's do it a little bit more. I'll switch with the last. Plus, yeah. Let's do 100, yeah, do 100%. Sorry,
120. It was at 100 just now.
let's do 50, sorry. All right, that works, appreciate it. Let me- So, yeah, sorry, everybody's seen the budget message before, so, there may be a few things different on the framing discussion than what we normally do. During the retreat, and a couple reasons for that. Oftentimes we've got preliminary bottom line numbers, so we can kind of share context of like, hey, we've never had a year where like, hey, we have too much money, and we've, got a surplus. It's usually how big is the deficit, and that dictates what type of strategy or approaches we're gonna have to try to balance the budget. So I thought one thing that would be helpful the reason we don't have preliminary numbers is the software conversion we went through did not talk and communicate with the budget software. So basically, budget staff the last few months have had to basically create a whole separate program without aid of the software program. Now they're having to manually enter all the data. So anyway, it's just been a tremendous amount of work. But we'll be going over the details tonight. But I thought it would be very helpful to just remind us quickly of like what's going on in this year and just walking through the some key points in the budget message would be helpful. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I probably won't share anything that you don't already know. So revaluation and tax rate. I'm operating under the assumption that for this year, like I will be bringing you a budget that has no tax rate increase. There's a lot of frustration on the reval process countywide, not just in the countywide, in the region. And also we've had a history in Hillsborough of going pretty significant periods of time between tax rate increases, but we had 2 rate increases in back-to-back years. Of course, this year was the equivalent of like over 5 cents, and we had 2 cents the year before. So anyway, that is the goal, and that's going to mean there'll be some difficult decisions to make as far as how we get there. And it's hard to see here in the bottom, but I'll make it very easy that in the budget year that we're operating under, we did a great job this year. We started off with almost having a balanced budget, which is probably maybe the best year we ever did. But then what happened about 3 weeks after you adopted the budget? Chantal. So that was total game changer. Even before Chantal, what we call year 2, which is the budget year we're walking into, we were looking at over an $800,000 projected deficit and then $1.3 million in the general fund going forward. Now, as we all know, we try to be conservative. There's a combination of things the picture often, not always looks better, but then that's countered by every single year, people want more and more things, whether it's the more services in the community or unexpected things in the department. So we're walking into this budget with almost $1 million deficit, and that doesn't factor all the complications from Chantal and going forward. So finding new things that weren't already on the radar is going to be a major challenge. And as far as like cost and deficit reduction strategies, let me just go ahead and try to increase this a little bit so that you can see. That may help a little bit. I'm not going to go and walk through all of these. Oh, actually, there was one thing I thought was really important to mention. Under the general fund highlights, we're talking about the deficits and everything right there. What we start off with is what we call the continuation budget. When we go ahead and we bring all the years 2 and 3, we slide those forward. Those are things that the board's already included in the budget and the financial plan. And then when departments make new requests, either for something in year 3 or something new that has come up, that goes on the unfunded list. So we first try to go through and assess everything, and then we do the best job we can, seeing how much capacity we got to absorb new things. I know Commissioner Hughes mentioned last year during the budget process that he was interested in zero-based budgeting, and I think I had twitching and things like that. But taking the speed, because I'm not a fast thinker and I thought quickly, one of the things I would have mentioned is that I would say using the continuation budget that we do, that the board sees every year, is zero-based budgeting light. We don't go through item by item. I mean, the board has that prerogative to go, do we really need, X number of people in there? We can do that at any time, but we're going and operating on that basis. And it's open for everybody to see, are there services that you no longer want to provide or you want to reduce? So I find over the years that almost never happens, but we do make the information easily accessible for that type of evaluation for the board or anybody else that wants to go through. So I was only 10 months late on answering Matt's responding to his question, so better late than never. All right. One of the things that we have done is a cost control mechanism. It's not been a hiring freeze, but we've really tried to limit the number of new FTEs. You've all seen the charts on how expensive it is to hire somebody, give them the equipment, do all that type of stuff. So we've gone like probably over the past 2 years, and maybe we've added 1 FTE. And in the 3-year plan that the board adopted this past June, there was no new positions in that. Now, one of the things we recognize as reality is 3 years is a long time. Situations can change quickly. We always want to be open to the possibility of like, hey, this is either a great opportunity or we're creating a lot of problems that we can do a better job serving by doing that. So we're going to do the best we can to limit new FTEs going forward. But with that said, we were having discussions with the employees sort of as a follow-up to the employee survey and getting employee feedback in person going into the budget process. And one of the things that we were hearing is we're burned out, we are stressed, we are being given too much things that are unexpected, that are not part of our core municipal services. And we feel as a group, is what I'm hearing, is we're worried about making mistakes and we need to narrow our focus. So it sounds great to say we're not hiring many employees for a long period of time. But that's sort of the tension that we've got. As we said in the past, it's a lot easier to say no than it is to fund new things sometimes or push things off. So that's sort of the tension that we've got. Is I think everybody around this horseshoe understands that. So when we start seeing specific requests and what's out and what's in, we're all probably going to have discussions and debates about, which will be good, about is this what we want to do or is there a better way? One of the cost control mechanisms that we did a lot last year that I didn't like, but we needed to minimize not just the rate increase on taxes going forward, but in that year was the ramp up process that we've used for saving for capital has been very successful and allowed us to do things that we might not have otherwise done. Because if you don't start building that capacity and setting money aside, what happens is other things that seem really cool and exciting crowd out the ability to do the most important things. So that's worked well for fire truck and the ladder truck, which are FY 30 and 32 in there. We eliminated last year the ramp up and we didn't like it, but that's what we needed to do and said, when we get to the point, we'll just recommend raising taxes to that amount. Going back to the trying to not have the top priorities get crowded out, we are going to try to work that ramp up back into the budget because we don't want to say, hey, it looks like we've got extra money to do something else. We want to make sure we're not forgetting these core functions. The other thing that's sort of frightening the League of Municipalities, they did a legislative update 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about the General Assembly having discussions about changing property tax. And so as far as trying to be conservative going forward, we don't want to overcommit ourselves if something happens where we basically lose our only elastic source of revenue that basically we can or have the ability to adjust the dial on. When they were talking about that, they mentioned that Chris Nida and the league have been really working and they feel members of the General Assembly are trying to get a better understanding of the impact. And they used the town of Wilkesboro as an example. In 2018, they bought an engine. It was $585,000. They just bought the same engine this last year. It was $1.3 million. That was like a plus% increase. As the board knows, like, these are the types of increases we're seeing, and it's making it really hard to make ends meet. Yeah, we've got fire station, we're still including, we had to pause the ramp up at $300,000 per year, but we're still gonna do everything we can to include that. The ramp up for affordable housing, I just wanted to point out, like, so on the upside in FY 27, which is the budget year we would be in, the board will be reaching their goal of getting $320,000 per year contribution for affordable housing related items. That was the former 2-cent equivalent on our tax rate, but we're kept it at 320. But very important to know, just 5 years ago, we were at 20,000. So as far as, pressure on the budget, we've added $300,000, which is probably the board's top priority, but we'll be accomplishing that goal. Water and sewer highlights, again, same thing, I think everybody's familiar with it, but one thing to includes, like, we're still assessing the impact from Chantal. We're still trying to figure out if we can replace the lost brick funds, even though the court cases said that we should be getting those funds. We don't know. We've applied for a secondary grant to substitute for that if that doesn't work out. Our budget in water and sewer in year 2 and 3, in order to get it into a financially decent place, was 12.5% on water increases for years 2 and 3. We were trying to hold it at 7.5%. So a little bit of information on that. We are going to work very hard to try to get that number down to a more manageable amount. I think in 2 weeks, you'll be getting the update from Raftalis Financial on the minimum rates options that you're studying, looking at the billing. And I believe the model they did use 7.5 in years 2 and 3.
No, they were trying to get it to get it to 7.5.
Oh, okay.
They were projecting higher rates in like years 1 and 2, and then kind of dropping it off in years 3, like beyond, but they're gonna try and smooth it out.
Okay, all right. So anyway, major challenge. So we're feeling lots of pressure there, and I really want to thank Marie and Bryant from when we were having our budget review meetings. As far as, it's a difficult situation to say, hey, can we push off replacing the 90-year-old water tank or the 50 to 100-year-old lines? These are tough decisions, but we're also looking at tens of millions of dollars of impact. So they've been looking at ways to, like, oh, well, maybe we can push a project out a couple of years and sort of stretch and buy ourselves more time as an additional way. Once again, not something we want to do on the different projects we're looking at, but we're looking at that as a way to try to be able to possibly lower the cost, the rate increases going forward. But to be determined, we're still early in the process. Of course, in 2 weeks, Raftalis Financial will be here giving you the update and options on looking and comparing what we currently do with the minimum rate charge of 2,000 gallons per month versus a base rate and volumetric rate. So it's about 50-50 in the state how people do things. It's this one there. But very important, we were just mentioned it on the days of cash on hand. There's a saying with the finance and the bond people when it comes to revenue bonds or basically any bonds, cash is king. The first thing they're doing is to look to see how much undesignated cash do you have available. And our policy says we'll have 360 days of cash on hand in the bank. And you can see in FY 26, we're at 252. And that's something that doesn't look as good. The numbers are okay, but we really need to work to push those numbers up. Again, it's this tension that we're working on, and it goes down to 218 in FY 28. Getting that influx of about $700,000 from reimbursing ourselves, that will help some. We're going to continue to look for opportunities to put cash back in the bank. And again, I think I've already covered all of that. We do have a lot. I think Shannon gave me an updated number today in the employee meetings of, we may be close to 1,500 units that have been approved, but we just are having to wait to get some relief as far as like when they are going to get these things coming out of the ground. But even when that happens, there's still a delay before we go ahead and get the funding. All right, those are just the strategies, doing a lot of different things in water sewer to try to control it. This would be stormwater. The third year, we had the choice. Do we want to raise rates $45 in one shot, or do we want to split it up 15 years over $15 per year over 3 years? We did it that way. So this will be the last $15 increase in that series. We're still a little bit tight on bottom line and stormwater. And then trying to see, I had editing a PDF is a horrendous thing, at least at my low talent level. So sorry for the blur down there. So one of the big things that we're also going to be looking at is Haley will be talking about it. Is we've been so fortunate on a health insurance since we moved to the N chip. We've had either like many years of no increases or extremely small increases. So it looks like we're gonna have a 7.5% increase in health insurance this year. But it sounds like industry wide, we're hearing from lots of other local governments that are looking at 20 and 30+% increases. So 7.5 is actually pretty decent, and we still have some in reserve. At this point, I'm committed to figuring out a way to fund that so we continue to pay the employees 100% of their share on individual coverage. And then dependent care, we are surrounded by, and the board's aware of this, like entities that are paying a significant portion of dependent care insurance for employees. Now, statewide, that's not the case, but we just happen to be in an area where these other units are doing it. So we came up with added a new health insurance option that was lower cost, which was an option for folks. And we started making a small contribution for employees to help. But that was like one of the top 2 things we heard in the employee survey is like, this is still very expensive. So we will be looking in the budget to see like other options to try to help this, because that's a key portion of being able to keep the most important thing we've got, and that's our talent and employees. So anyway, that's a quick walkthrough. Like I said, we don't, other than it being tight, we know it's going to be difficult. We just need to be judicious on anything new we add in going forward. So the last thing I'd say is if you have questions, concerns, or want to push staff to look for alternatives, you'll be able to see things that maybe we're blind because we're looking at them all the time. This is the year to be doing this because it's going to be a challenge getting through everything. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, next up, C, fiscal year 27-33 capital improvement plan.
Hello. So as we start tonight, so the packet included the various CIP and operating budget requests that have been made. We are really early in the budget process. We've essentially, departments have submitted their requests. We've met with departments to talk about them, but that's about as far as we've gotten. We have not yet gotten to the stage where we figure out how much money do we have to pay for them and when might we be able to pay for them. So since we are still early, we thought this would be a great opportunity to get your feedback, to see if there's any questions that you may have about the various requests that have been made, and to see if there are any things that are missing that you think should be on the list that aren't currently requested. So I'm going to start with the CIP, and it's going to go sort of functional area by functional area. So like public works, public safety, and then just ask if you have any questions or feedback. We do have representatives from most of our departments and divisions here. So if there's any questions, they should be able to hopefully answer them. If not, we will circle back with you after the meeting, if that sounds all right with everybody.
That sounds like a good approach. Thanks.
All right. So we'll start with the general fund. And I'll just open it up and see if anyone has any questions related to public space. And don't worry, if we go to the next department or next slide and you realize you have a question, we can certainly come back, but.
Just in general, this is against the backdrop of just coming back from DC and hearing from both sides of the house, and that the expectation is more and more, and this is no surprise to most, that local governments picking up what has been traditionally deflected from the feds, and the transportation HUD, housing and development appropriations did pass. And there's some good things there. The community plan, project funds, that cycle opened on Friday. Early March and each congressperson has their own deadline. March 1st to March 12th are the deadlines. That's for fiscal year 27. And they want to hear projects. It does not need to be $1 million. It can be small. The other thing are the earmarks. The earmarks are going through. They're not being challenged. So again, I'm looking at some of this, that why not have earmarks for, I've always talked about naming rights, but also earmarks for some of these big pieces, not only on public spaces, but also infrastructure, because we may not, it's one thing to plan that we don't get them, but we don't ask enough to even get the chance. So I'm hoping that we get the opportunity to make asks, because communities across North Carolina are getting money.
We will definitely look into it. Any other questions about public space related requests? Seeing none. Fire protection? Public Works? Special appropriations? Looking to the water and sewer fund. Any questions on the water treatment plant request? Reservoir?
Question, was that repair related to the item that we discovered? After the
Yes.
until
Yeah, I believe we're still waiting results from the study to figure out exactly what those repairs will look like, but it's sort of a placeholder until then.
Yes, we've received a scope and fee from the selected engineering firm, and then they'll get started on evaluating further some of the recommendations.
Water distribution? Wastewater collection?
A couple questions in the wastewater collection section, but
Okay.
I can try to find that page. The first one was about the Bellevue Mill interceptor upgrade. And in my notes, I've got written down that there was 50,000 in FY 27, but the project was timed for FY 32. Yeah, I'm still looking for it in the packet, but
Yeah, and so what we're trying to do there is there's actually two pipes that run through Bellevue Mill. One of them used to carry a force main from Evelyn Cheeks Elementary School. That was, that force main and two sewers to clean out, or two sewer services are the only thing that outfall is covering. So that $50,000 is gonna move those two services over to the main that's got all the other services on it. And our plan is to plug that main to try to get rid of a lot of the inflow and infiltration we're getting from that basin.
this is just, the 50,000 is just to kind of clean up one little bit of it, and the rest of it is getting pushed down to FY 32.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. And then, oh, the Kate's Creek outfall question. So, was on the revenue side. And maybe this is just my not understanding how this is all documented here, but I was wondering about the Waterstone South and the EP East acquisitions, and how in those agreements, they had money set aside for Elizabeth Brady pump, and then also for like Kate's Creek, like how, like that's not showing up, at least from what I can see in the revenue. And that's where I expected something like that to be.
Correct. I think those were sort of early drafts, and we've since have updated our CIP on our end to reflect those developer contributions.
Okay, right. And I wasn't sure if I was missing some other developers, but those
Yeah.
two were two that I had in my head. Okay. And then my third question was kind of combination with the flush truck under Public Works and then the jetback truck under stormwater. Because there was a note about, I don't know, if we get this,
Shared.
yeah, get this one, then the old one goes to them and then we don't have to. So I don't know if we want to keep going through until we get the wastewater or to the stormwater CIP yet, or if we want to talk about that, or.
That's fine, we can talk about it here since, I mean, it's related to the,
So the jet back truck under stormwater was 600,000 for this fiscal year. And then this one here was the 200,000 for the same fiscal year. So it's not seem like we would have to make a decision on either one and then moving that equipment to the other. Or we're doing both. I'm just kind of trying to understand what maybe the idea behind that was. And what are we looking from the board to say, head down this path or that path, or just, where are we with that? Or what do you want from us on that?
So I think this reflects the draft requests that were received, and we're still kind of working operationally to figure out if what the utilities vehicle is capable of works for stormwater as a replacement. Early indications are, yeah, we could probably do that if this is funded, then we can move forward without purchasing one for stormwater. If this is not funded, there probably needs to be a need for the drop in stormwater, and so it's sort of, we probably wouldn't do both.
Okay, all right, but that just gives you a little bit more understanding on if the old one that Public Works works for stormwater. Okay. All right, those are the questions I have. Thank you.
any other questions for wastewater collection? Okay, the wastewater plant. Moving on to stormwater. Any questions on the stormwater request? Great. And just one, I guess, one clarification. So as Matt indicated, all of the requests, both CIP and operating, are as submitted or as requested. And so we'll be going through those and kind of cleaning up like the developer contributions and making some of those edits or changes that have come in to them. So these are just as requested at the moment.
This, you go back to the culvert one. I guess my question when I read through that is not really knowing enough about, can't remember the exact name of what the process is called, but it looked like there was a benefit from doing, was it like a concrete interior, versus doing like an open culvert? And kind of like, what are the decision points between those two of what actually would be wanted? Like, we want the concrete one for longevity and maintenance, or, but I think it mentioned something about if we have an open culvert, then environmentally it's better, but maybe, I'm not quite sure exactly what are the pros and cons of those two items.
So we've identified some short-term stormwater funding to actually amend our contract with the consultants doing the design of the sewer in Elizabeth Brady. We said, hey, let's try to combine these projects so we have one disruption to Elizabeth Brady Road instead of two. So the first thing they're actually doing is first making sure the culvert under Elizabeth Brady Road is actually sized appropriately, because the DOT is about to do a culvert replacement immediately upstream in US 70A. So they, our understanding from the initial review of those drawings, that culvert may be made bigger. Well, that's the case. We don't want our culvert to be a choke point. So we're gonna, we got what they call the one-dimensional stormwater model. We're paying consulting to go back and update that model and compare what the DOT is gonna do to our culvert, and that would better frame the scope of what that culvert replacement needs to be. So we actually just got that amendment signed last week. And so we're hoping to get results relatively soon. We were very fortunate that we were able to get that amendment signed while the surveyors are actually already out in the field. So we're able to recognize some cost savings as well, because we didn't have to pay for surveyors twice. So
Wait and see on this one in a little bit.
yeah, we'll know, like, obviously, we can't line the culvert back with like a concrete liner or a sock liner if the culvert needs to be made bigger.
Mhm.
It needs to be made bigger, the whole pipe would have to come out, a new one would have to go in. It's a corrugated metal pipe that, so you're looking at probably a floor replacement.
Before we move on to operating budget requests, are there any other questions that you have about the CIP or any things that you're hoping to see in the CIP that were not shown? Seeing none, we'll move on to the operating budget request. And similarly, we'll go sort of functional area by functional area. Starting with the general fund and general government. I know there's a lot on this slide. So pause here to see if there's any questions.
I have a couple questions, I guess, of facility maintenance stuff. So it's generator and ATS switch for town hall. That's what that top one is.
Yeah.
And then there's the old generator for Dorothy Johnson Community Center from HPD. So is that on the? Yeah, community center generator. So what's the need for I guess a generator at the community center is my first question. And then.
I didn't know if there was another second part of the question.
Well, so and then it's $35,000 just to connect that or to hook it up?
Oh, I think the thought was that if we replace the generator, the HPD, and there's still some life left in that generator, is there somewhere we could use the life of that generator? And the community center was an idea. I don't know that it's a high priority item and that if we want to invest in a generator, we could probably get a new one for the size of that building that would have a warranty and last a lot longer than that HPD one for a similar price. But I think it was more of an attempt to, on Rod's part, to not waste a few last years.
And that's fine, I get that. And I guess my question was, is that the best place for it? Or is there another facility or?
It's probably, in my opinion, the best place for that generator is probably not to try to reuse it, just because it is very, very old.
Right.
But I do think that the question of a generator at the community center is a good idea in the sense that they don't have any, there's no backup there.
But so explain when they would use a generator with no power, like when would, I
For
guess,
heating centers, I mean, if we were in a cold snap and we wanted to use that as a resource area for distributing food in emergencies or giving people a warm place to be in the event of a prolonged power outage, or, I mean, we're thinking a lot more about emergency preparedness after Chantal and Helene. And I don't know that those details have really worked out, but certainly it's in a really strategic location for being able to get to the northern neighborhoods.
If I can chime in, and I asked similar question during the budget review, and a few other things like the police department generator is diesel. It's loud, it only holds like 3 days, it may run longer with another capacity. And in budget years where we're extremely tight, there's gonna be a lot of high priority items funded. I also said the same thing. If we needed a generator, I would rather do something new. I think would be nice if we were in a different financial situation, but I did ask staff to explore the possibility of putting in, what would it cost to put in an automatic transfer switch? Because then you've got the ability, if you've got the switch in the panel, then you could bring a generator in, whether it's on mutual aid or some other thing, and that would be a far more cost effective option in the long run.
yeah, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it, I just didn't know if that was necessarily the best place for it. And then I was just trying to envision when we would use that, so. We have in Chapel, we have 3 large community centers and we're not generated for any of them. But when we have inclement weather or things that, shut us down, we're not utilizing those as warming centers or for, essentially like a dual purpose.
So And one other is the thing we found out, and the county is finding out, like during the last storm, was like, hey, how come there's not two centers open in the north? It was like, it takes a tremendous amount of staffing, and it's really easy to say, oh, we'll just let people go do that on their own. But as busy as we all are, like, where are we gonna find several more people that are county employees to go operate that? So again, great concept. It should be on our radar. We should be thinking about it. But as far as funding priorities, unless the board says otherwise, that'll likely be one that would be deferred, or we'll look at the automatic transfer switch. So, which is, if there is an unexpected option, a lot of times you can bring in a generator within hours, plug it in, and you're good to go.
Sure. So the HVAC replacements, it was kind of vague. I'm just curious of, where those are intended and how many?
Yeah, I think Rob is gonna get that information to you after our budget meeting. He was gonna send you the locations, cause I don't actually know what the locations were. Just he's gone through now and gotten the age and knows which is under warranty, and these are the ones that represent
We're talking rooftop commercial.
those that need to be replaced. Not all of them are rooftop, no, some of them are just HVAC units for some of our facilities that are quite old. But I think Emily, he was gonna give you a list or a map of all of those.
Yeah, I can't remember if we got, I think Josh is just checking to see if,
Okay.
we have that information.
Let's, facility. Any questions?
I see the list right here, but it's, what are you putting down on the board on the follow on?
Commissioner Darrow?
I was wondering if you could, Stephanie, talk more about the covered shelter for the picnic table at the entrance to the Riverwalk by the parking lot. Is there only one picnic table there?
Yeah, so if you're looking from Weaver Street down towards the entrance, there's two sides. One has benches and one has a picnic shelter. One has picnic table. Our thought was just after this last summer, it being so hot, that trying to create some additional shade in parks and public spaces is a good idea. And this is coming from discussion with the Parks and Rec Board when they worked on the Riverwalk Master Plan this year. This was one of the priority recommendations from that public process that they went through, sort of vetting what to prioritize. And so having a shaded outdoor picnic area would be good in inclement weather like rain, to giving people a dry place to sit, and then a shady place in the summertime. So it would just be like a prefabricated canopy over that picnic area. And we could probably fit another picnic table there. If we scoot one over, we could probably have two picnic tables there, because there's extra space there right now.
So it's just the one side though?
Just the one side, yeah.
I'm just thinking about trying to. We're gonna have to cut even small projects like this, like if there's rain, you duck into the stairwell at the farm, the parking ground, you need shade, you go on the river, there's trees, so just, I don't know, trying to go through this stuff a little bit more, a thought of if hard decisions have to be made. Cause it would be nice, but anyway.
And also that was one, so there were two picnic shelter requests. One was
Yeah.
in Kate's Creek Park. But this one in particular at Riverwalk was gonna be cost shared with tourism.
Okay.
If you look at the tourism budget, and then I think it's explained in the narrative part of the budget justification for this, that we were gonna cost share that with the tourism program. And it's that, I don't think it. When we're asked to rank things, we're not necessarily, I'm not ranking my things against the water and sewer infrastructure. I'm ranking it based on the things that we're submitting, and this was a top priority from the Parks and Rec Board.
I get since our meeting was canceled for tourism, haven't probably seen that part either, right? Yeah. And that's for Kate's Creek and the Riverwalk this year, or just?
No, just the Riverwalk, and then there was, we asked also for additional kiosk signs in West Hillsborough, and that's something that tourism board has been discussing, but we just thought there may be some benefit in the town and tourism being able to put more up kind of all at once, and kind of realizing some cost savings and doing multiple at once versus trying to do one every year.
Yeah.
For a couple of years.
But I will say, even though the Kate's Creek Park picnic shelter isn't a cost share with tourism, it is, in my opinion, more important and necessary because there's so little shade in that park. And it's being utilized so much that it would really be nice to provide some additional shade there.
Yeah, I agree with us, there's less mature trees at Kate's Creek versus the River Rock. Not very.
I mean, I did have one, which was just a little bit more, info on the thermostat upgrades and what y'all will be able to do with that.
So we have the thermostats around this town are from like every age and every era. Some of them, you know, we're still trying to figure out how, yeah, you can like dial and like place over. No, the idea, Rod would like to just standardize the thermostats so they're all something that he can check and control from his app, which are what some of our newer ones are. And that way he can check on the weekends. If we have special events that are happening, you know, he can kind of set it from his phone. He doesn't have to come in and deal with it. Or like if we if we close one day, like when we have the snow days, all of our system is set to like automatically heat. Well, we don't have to do that if no one's coming into the office. So it would give him greater control for cost savings and energy savings, but it would also be something he could kind of keep his eye on and check remotely to make sure that everything's working correctly and appropriately.
So we could realize those savings
Yes.
pretty quickly.
I would think
potentially.
so.
One pay for itself.
The. Sorry, I'm checking to see if this is part of it, but, the $20,000 for the code enforcement. Did we talk about increasing it at the last meeting when?
Yes, I believe the words that were said was that I had a blank check. No, what we're gonna go ahead and do with that is kind of, I believe at this time, kind of keep that $20,000 placeholder and see how much of that we can get knocked out in this fiscal year. Again, the same idea, trying to get it all handled at once under kind of one contract. And then I still think it would be beneficial to try and have that $20,000, especially for at least next fiscal year, because we still are gonna have a few follow-ups. We just may not need it in year 3 if we knock a bunch of it out this fiscal year.
General government continued, got IT, HR, and public space. And I'm gonna turn it over here to Haley in just a second to talk about the HR request. Before I do, any questions on the IT or public space?
I have a couple questions on the IT. And Chris should. Fine. Can you explain the access control and the physical security? There seem to be some overlap in
Yeah.
alarms and cameras. So,
So this is a classic of, I updated the language a little bit after I think this one, I do apologize for that. So one is access control standardization and one is expansion. Standardization in so much as if you go from this building to wastewater treatment plant, you will have a different way of getting in the building versus PD, which is a completely different way of getting in the building, so on and so forth from treatment. Similar to the HVAC control. Expansion is we have some areas that have no camera system. We have some areas that have no door control systems. We have server closets that are wide open, things of that nature. From an IT standpoint, if we can't secure our environment, all the cybersecurity that we want to do, pretty much useless. If someone can walk in and just take it off the rack and walk out the door. We're gonna hear that again in just a second. So I've spoiled some of my best. But otherwise, that is part of the reason why it's ended up in this budget here. We're working with a working group to try to identify some of these areas that are top priority to standardize to a centralized system so that PD can get where it needs to go, or that we have people who are trained on unlocking the doors so that we don't have people wandering in when there's a snow day. Things of that nature.
I guess my question was if there's an opportunity for common skill, common.
Yeah.
For both of us to
So
take advantage of it.
yes, absolutely. So the idea would be that, we would identify where we want to go as a physical security working group, standardize towards that place. And to your point, yes, absolutely. If we find a vendor that we can work with where we're saying, all right, we're buying 4 buildings, can we get a whatever discount, then all the better, rather than dripping and grabbing. Of course.
So any other questions on IT or public space? All right, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Haley to talk about the insurance.
So I'm just gonna jump right on in, piggybacking on one thing that Eric said earlier. Just a background with we're part of the NCHIP, the North Carolina Health Insurance Pool. And this slide's just saying over the past 7 years, we've had an average of 1.4% premium rate increase compared to the other NCHIP members, which is at a 2.4% increase. So we've seen below average rate increases over the years. And being part of the North Carolina Health Insurance Pools, it's helping us stabilize those premium costs over the years. And just touch on the last bullet point, because Eric already mentioned this, people that are outside of NCHIP, they're seeing premium rate increases from 20 to 50% with their health insurance. So Eric, we've already mentioned that we're seeing about a 7.5% rate increase, which shows how being part of the NCHIP is really helping stabilize those costs. But that 7.5% rate increase is much higher than what we've seen in the past 7 years. And we're really seeing those costs increase because of rising pharmacy costs, especially with the GLP-1s for weight loss. So that's like the Wegovy, the Zepbound, and Saxenda. Throughout NCHIP as a whole, the pharmacy costs have increased from 3 million to 10 million in just over 2 years. So we were presented with 3 different options for renewing our health insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And this table, you have like what we see, the current amount. And then this first option, or the status quo, is like we cover the GLP-1 weight loss drugs as we're currently covering. And if we do that option, then that results in a 12.5% increase in our premiums. And then all the way on the other end, I'm going to jump around to option 3. If we take away the coverage for the GLP-1s for weight loss, then we're seeing the 7.5%. And then that, like taking that out of the coverage, that kind of makes it more challenging for employees to be able to get the GLP-1 for weight loss drugs and prescriptions, and is it even a higher out-of-pocket cost for the employees. So this middle option is that we would have the 7.5% rate increase for premiums, and then we would partner with this RX Safeguard program with, it would be an additional 1.5% funding. So overall 9% increase, but for the fees and being able to subsidize. And I'll get into more detail about what the RX Safeguard is. But essentially of these 3 options, we are going to recommend the second option, so we can help make those drugs still more affordable for employees. So the RX Safeguard, the benefit is it does continue to give the employees the option to have access to those GLP-1s. And going with the RX Safeguard, and if we subsidize the RX Safeguard for $200 a month for each prescription, is projected 50% savings. RX Safeguard, it offers GLP-1s at a much lower cost than what we're currently doing. And so the RX Safeguard takes the third-party vendor, the pharmacy benefit manager, out of the equation or the process. So the RX Safeguard goes directly from like the consumer or the manufacturer to consumer. Because with that third-party pharmacy benefit manager, there's additional fees that cost the $900 versus with the RX Safeguard, the $400. And this is with the injectables. Because what we've heard now with the Wegovy weight loss pill, that's, I believe, like $200 to $300 a month. So that's a lower cost. And since that's available now, we anticipate seeing more people likely go towards the pill rather than injectable.
So you're talking about going straight to the pharma benefit, so the Lilly consumer program directly?
So yeah, RX Safeguard would work with that really directly.
But it's essentially RX Save, as I understand though, is really the program it's coming from. So the pharmaceutical companies are offering direct consumer benefits directly. It's a limited pool. is the RX Save card, is that contracted with the pharmaceutical, or are you saying you're using the actual pharmaceutical consumer benefit that the pharma is doing? There's a difference because of how the programs work. It's RX, if it's RX Save is contracting with pharma. You won't, it's a different thing if you're going straight to pharma.
Yeah, so they're not, my understanding, and I could be wrong, and I'll go back and confirm with Gallagher, that they're not contracting with pharma. So the RX Save card is a program that really allows the town to subsidize the cost for those drugs.
And I'm glad you mentioned, because, yeah, we now can get, well, first generation, you can get it at lower cost. First of all, I'm glad to see that we're looking at a coverage because of downstream on the reduction of chronic kidney disease, the cardiovascular, the metabolic. It is amazing in terms of the reduction of high ticket, high cost morbidities down the line thing, but I'm curious why it's $450, and is that $450 for second generation or first generation?
That I don't know off the top of my head. I just know, and I believe my understanding of the different costs of the different benefits or the prescriptions, it can change. And so this is just like an example of that, how that RX Save card with going direct would save the town and employees.
And the reason why I'm asking is because in terms of the long-term benefit profiles of the different ones do vary. You know, especially, you know, CKD and the cardiovascular and that piece. I'm kind of curious. I like where we're going with this. But I'd like us to have a better handle on when they say GLP-1s at $450. Which ones? Why $450? You know, do employees have an option? Because the other thing is different because of the side effects, and there's some differences in how people react. One size does not fit all, and to make sure that we give employees options so that they're not given a one, I react badly, too bad, so sad.
Yeah, I just want to suggest maybe Kathleen, you could ask very specific questions by email to Haley, and she could respond to the board.
I'm glad to.
Those answers.
So we need to make a decision is by the end of the month.
Yes, so the renewal paperwork's due February 26th, just to get everything in time to Blue Cross Blue Shield in time for open enrollment that happens in April.
So a suggestion would be, anybody feel free to adjust it. It's like everybody has questions for Haley. Haley can go back, try to provide answers. We can email that out to the board. Haley can be here at the 23rd. We have the workshop. And then the board can say, yep, whatever, we're happy with this, let's go ahead and we need to figure out which way we're gonna go.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Continuing with this slide, the RX Save card, it's expected to work seamlessly with Vita. And Vita is a current program that we have that helps put guardrails on how the weight loss drugs are prescribed. So instead of allowing any employee and their dependents on the plan, just going to their healthcare provider saying, I want this weight loss drug, they have to go through this Vita program to make sure that they medically need that weight loss drug. And so anybody that's currently on the GLP-1s for weight loss now, or who may be prescribed from now to July, if we go with the RX Save program, it's just going to be a seamless transition on the back end, and employees should not see any kind of hiccups in their coverage with that.
So there are issues, and I don't know enough about Vita, but there are issues with some of these programs that when you hit, they kick them off and you start the cycle again. do these let people stay on once they're on, or do they kick them off once they hit, like, whether it's the glucose or whatever marker they're looking at?
It should let them stay on and it will be a case by case basis. It should be individualized to the person who, what care they need, what type of drug works best for them. And
I'll finish asking questions because I have some concerns. But I need to do a little bit more homework.
so I've mentioned that with the RX Safe card, with the direct to consumer, the RX Safe card really gives us the option to subsidize the cost for those weight loss drugs for employees. So we would recommend currently the $200 subsidy. So we have this example, let's say an employee is subscribed or prescribed, excuse me, the Wegovy pill and through the Vita program. Say this Wegovy pill is costing $250 for the month. There's $200 that's preloaded onto the RX Safe card. And when the employee or whoever's covered on the plan, they go and pick up the prescription, they're only paying $50 out of pocket. And they can use their health savings account or their flexible spending account to pay for that additional $50.
The 200 reloaded every
Per month.
Yes, per month.
What is the cost difference of RX Safe card versus that 200 going into HSA?
I have not looked at that. We can look at that.
Or an FSA, for employee using their FSA.
And we can look into that. And I know with one thing that we would want to look at with the RX Safe card, it would be the people that are prescribed the drug would be getting that up to $200. So if their prescription, let's say, is $150, then they're only going to get that $150, so they're not having to pay anything out of pocket. Versus if we're wanting to contribute an additional $200 to a health savings account, we would want to look at, are we going to add that $200 for all employees? And there's also contribution limits with the HSA and FSA that we would have to look into and maybe make things a little more complicated, but I haven't looked at those costs exactly and can go back at that.
Typically, your HSA has to be connected to a higher deductible plan. So if you're on a low deductible plan, that makes it hard in enforcing employee potentially to go to a higher deductible plan. But looking at your slide about the $1,000 in funding per month, I assume the 1,000 is not a placeholder. So under your scenario, we're talking about 5 employees.
Yes, we currently have 5 employees that are being prescribed these weight loss medications. So that's just based off our current prescription.
I don't really think we need to go down the rabbit hole and consider all of these different sorts of things for 5 out of 100 some employees. I mean, I think option 2, I would be fine giving you direction that option 2 makes the most sense. And I personally don't need more information.
I would concur with that. I think we should, generally say, we leave it up to you to decide what is the best. Informed the board is great, but I don't think we need to be as intricately involved as you might be.
I want to ask more questions because I'm hearing just asking questions. We don't yet know some things. So I still want to ask those questions. I'll put it offline.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and let you know. We have the sooner you can get those questions, the
Absolutely.
better. We actually have a meeting tomorrow morning with Gallagher and RX Safe card and those questions
So you need
tonight or
them
in the
tonight.
morning. It's okay if you don't get them. I can always ask those questions after tomorrow's meeting, but that'd be a good time to get those in. So with this option, as we mentioned, it would be a 7.5% increase in our premiums. And then you've got the 1 to 1.5% increase for those RX Safe card feeds and the subsidy. So with that, The next question would be if we go with this option 2 and we've got that 7.5 premium increase. How are we gonna fund those? Eric had already mentioned that what he would like to do is the option 2 on here, but I'll start with the option 1 in this table. This would is what I see as like the base option would be that we're covering the cost for employee only coverage. And then the additional 7.5% is being passed on to employees. And that would increase their monthly deductions if they're covering any dependents. And that's right under the 1.2 million at the annual cost. The second option is what we're recommending at this time is for the town to absorb the full 7.5% increase. So that would mean that the employees would not have an increase in their monthly premium deductions going forward. And then the other last 2 options, the third one is showing if the town absorbs 5% of the dependent premium coverage. The fourth one is if we are covering the 2.5% and the employees take on an additional 5%. And then previously mentioned, Eric touched on a lot of these things with the retention and the employee survey feedback and just looking at some of our competitors by the reason that we are recommending the town absorb those for the additional increase. In the exit interview surveys and even employee survey feedback, we hear some people say, I can have a lower salary elsewhere, but be taking home more money because I'm not having to pay as much for my family to be on health insurance. So that's one thing that we continue to see on the employee survey as well as in exit interview surveys. So that's one of the many reasons why we're recommending this option.
Can you
I'm a little confused. So, go ahead.
probably a bigger question? So we have a 7.5% increase. We currently cover 100% of employee premium.
Yes.
And what percentage do we cover for dependent?
It varies by each tier and with each plan. I don't know off the top.
It's not like 50% or,
It's 67, I think. Yeah, an average of 67% across all 3 plans in each tier level.
so we would just subsidize essentially the 7.5% so they continue to pay what they're currently paying.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mike, I think I got my wires twisted inside, so. The 7.5% is just the premium increase. That is not the cost of the RX Safe program, correct?
Correct.
What is the actual cost of the RX Safe program?
So it depends on how much we decide to subsidize and how many people are being prescribed.
Okay, let me rephrase the question, not how much we pay or how many people we pay. What does it cost us to be a participant in the program?
I believe the fee is like $150 a month.
The card and the fees are $150 a month.
Okay.
Which we would pay if no one was on the. So.
That's where I was getting a little confused about.
I pay a FSA fee every month, even if no one makes a claim, so I figure it's pretty similar.
And if we. Sorry, I'm talking out loud for just a moment. I think I've got enough information. I'm gonna pose a whole bunch of questions.
Okay. And so if I heard the suggestion correctly, it's like, have any questions that people may have after this, send them to me and then come back work session on the 23rd, get final approval, is that correct?
Right.
All right, so if anyone has any final questions, comments, let me know, or just send them to me after the fact and we'll get those addressed.
Oh my God, I had one. What is the difference in savings of like RX saving versus Global RX?
That will be a great one to send me. Yeah, I don't know that right now.
And Global RX is a local company, by the way. Yes, it is. Huh?
Local to state.
Huh? Local like headquartered here. Hillsborough.
I'll toss it back over to Emily now. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item E, nonprofit funding process.
Still a little bit more.
Did I skip some?
All right, so picking up where we left off, any questions about the public safety request?
I had one question.
Commissioner Priest.
For, I saw the crime scene breaking, which makes sense. What are we using now?
Whatever we can.
So we actually haven't had
Right.
proper. Oh,
Kathleen, could you repeat the question? I couldn't understand.
I'm sorry, the crime scene drapes, the barriers, safety barriers, screens. I was curious what we were using now, because we haven't seen the request. And what I understand, we really haven't had anything other than makeshift. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. We've had some issues with drones and the media and general passerbys. So we would, as soon as the situation would come up, we would have to put maybe a tent up or something and put tarps up, everything. This has been a long time coming.
No, particularly when there are humans involved, the privacy and just dignity and respect, I would hope so.
Wondering, question, the helmets, is that just replacing one for one, or like you got 12, you're getting 12 more, or?
We do plan on staging them out because they're kind of a pricey
Yeah.
project. And so, plan on doing a few per year. But yeah, they expire, just like our vests do and the rifle plates for like active shooter responses. They expire. We want to make sure that we have up-to-date equipment that's warranted, as well as, the current rifle plates we have don't work with our current vest configurations. So officers can't access their equipment that's on their vest. So this new update will allow it to be more compatible and allow officers to more safely, engage if they ever have to in those events.
Chief, can you explain what a rifle plate is? I was trying to understand. Is it a piece of body armor?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay.
So, we wear our vests. If you want me to, I can come up front if you want.
Yeah, go display.
Show and tell?
Feel like it's what allows them to become Batman.
No, see?
So, our regular bulletproof vests, like the Kevlar material, really thin and flexible. Rifle plates are much denser and thicker.
Okay.
Because they have to be, strong enough to absorb the impact of, let's say, an AR-15 round. So, they're very heavy, but we want to have something that works with the new vests that we have with outer carriers that allow them to maybe slide inside. So that way, when we put them on, we still have that access to our equipment, but it has to be strong enough, just like the helmets. If you look at the helmets, they're very thick. Where if we had on our regular Kevlar vests, it'll stop most handgun rounds, but a rifle round will go right through it. So it adds an extra level of protection.
Is it a special piece of equipment that you would put on for a certain scene or something you wear regularly?
So our officers carry their current ones in the back of their patrol vehicles. So let's say that an incident happened at a local educational facility. The officers would pull over, put on their equipment, and then respond. Okay. So it's for those types of situations.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are they not carrying helmets with them all of them too?
They have helmets with them too, yes.
But I had like a whole wall of them, but that makes more sense to carry it with.
So, especially if they do a traffic stop with it on, it might look,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you.
Any other public safety questions?
Oh, I got one more question about that speed box, chief. Is that something that we would stay in one fixed location or would we have the ability to move that around?
So that's the nice thing is that we have the ability to move it to different locations.
Yeah.
So that way, when we can respond to speeding complaints, sorry, talking. For speeding complaints, so we can go and evaluate, survey, and then share that data. And then the next one that comes up, we can move it easily to the next spot. That's what I was hoping for.
Yes, I have a question about the fire vehicle ramp up. Can you just remind us how we're locking into the increasing cost of those vehicles over time? We're ramping up, and are we ramping up to what we think the cost will be in 3 to 5 years, or is it just an approximation of what?
No, not exactly. So I think we just have placeholders from, I think, Chief Gabe had provided some estimates, gosh, I don't know, a year or so ago based off of what they were seeing. We haven't really done much in the way of updating it. This was just our attempt to get something like on the books and start having sort of like a general idea of what something maybe like, I think Eric mentioned, you know, that Wilkes-Barre, somebody had seen some pretty significant increases. So we haven't gotten into that level of detail, but with the ramp up, we were just looking to start setting aside some amount. And then we can certainly look to fine tune it, but this is just an effort to get started.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Okay.
we're just trying to, see, can we even do anything since we completely removed it, but we'll better be able to answer those in a couple months. Good question.
Good answer, thank you.
Right, Public Works or special appropriations.
Question on the truck replacement, that was not anything storm related, correct? This is a scheduled replacement, not. So emergency years old now, that truck, so.
So just quick, clarity, no, it's not related to the storm, it's also not a scheduled replacement, this is part of separating engineering services out from utilities. So this vehicle normally would have been replaced in time in the utilities fund, since it was transferred to the general fund needs to pick up the cost, and it's not been budgeted in the past in the general fund.
Question, I know after Chantal. We lost a vehicle, I think. Is that one being replaced, or what did y'all decide, or how did y'all?
So that
Deal with
vehicle
that
was
issue.
already on its way to being surplus,
Okay.
and so its planned replacement was purchased as part of the replacements this year.
Okay.
Moving on to the water and sewer fund. Any questions for the water treatment plant? The reservoir? Distribution? The wastewater collection? And the wastewater plant. That was it in terms of a operating budget request. Are there any other questions that you have about any of the requests that were made or things that you were hoping to see that were not on the list of request items?
I do have a question just about the reservoir cameras. Is that to have eyes on the water level or? You know, call the sheriff's office, people are swimming out there, what's that?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah, so you know where the reservoir is, it's well out of town, and when the rain comes, it'd be nice, cause some of them will be like solar powered and not require electricity. If we can keep an eye on the spillway to see what's happening, is it going over where it's at? But then also we get calls from the neighbors around the reservoir, the ones who are
Are the
voting
ones,
in it.
the ones who are.
The ones who aren't voting in it are telling on the ones who are, so, we. Yes, we'll send people the sheriff's department or the police department out to tell them they're not supposed to be.
Right. Seeing no other questions, I will turn it over to
Do we
Jen.
still have our nesting eagles?
I believe so.
Oh, and the camera near that.
I know, we can have the cameras in, have everybody watching.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. Now,
All right.
we're on to Jen. Nonprofit funding process rate.
Yes, so we'll turn it over to nonprofits. I know that there was a lot of information within the packet as far as things that we had previously gone over last year as far as the multi-phased approach for our process evaluation. So as part of that first phase, we made a lot of those changes to developing the policy and the application that was sent out. So that was all as part of made its way into this year's process for this current iteration. But then we had the items that were previously listed for phases 2 and 3 that we'll be getting into today as sort of a continuation approach. We had our kickoff was it Friday? Josh led us through that. The nonprofits were invited to attend and hear about the process for this year. The application was made available in January. It is due at the end of March. And so agencies have a little bit of time before the applications are due. We did record that session. So if you're aware of any nonprofits who weren't able to attend that kickoff session, we do have a recording available if they would like to listen in on what we discussed. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss with the board was the name. So previously we had referred to it as community reinvestment. As part of our evaluation, we wanted to make it a little bit more plain language, more easy to understand what it is when a nonprofit is looking to receive funding from the town. And so we went ahead and just made the change on our materials to nonprofit partnerships. And so before you in the packet, there's an updated policy that has some minor updates, just the formatting, and then also proposing switching the name from community reinvestment to nonprofit partnerships to make that extra clear for everyone. So just wanted to get reactions to that. Are you okay with that name? Any feedback?
They have to be nonprofits.
What was that?
If you're not a nonprofit, you should partner with a nonprofit.
With a nonprofit.
Yeah.
With a fiscal as a fiscal sponsor, we're right.
I like the name, if only because it would eliminate any confusion. Banks have obligations that's called Community Reinvestment Act funds that they have to spend. That's why a lot of them give money to nonprofits. And we wouldn't want folks thinking that like we receive money from a bank and have a lot of money to then turn out. People are looking for that exact phrase often, so making it something plainer also probably would relieve any confusion someone could have about the source of the funds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think the name change is fine.
All right.
I do like the word community, so.
Yeah, one of the things that arose was with the community reinvestment, didn't know if that could portray like a neighborhood who that wanted, for example, a park bench or this or that, that those dollars would be available for like those sorts of community grants that you may see in some other jurisdictions. So that was just one of the reasons for that, for businesses who may want to. All right, the next thing that we had discussed as part of our phase 2 was what to require as far as like financial information from the organizations. So took a look at what our neighbors are doing to create some consistency within what organizations in our area who are being funded by other jurisdictions are being required to do. And so the Orange County process has their delineation is agencies that have receipts of $500,000 or more have to submit a CPA certified financial audit. Those under that threshold have to complete a schedule of receipts and expenditures where you just list out sources of revenue and then the total expenditures, but those do not have to be prepared by the CPA. And so we felt like that would provide consistency with what organizations are doing, if they're also being funded through that program, and then also just keeping it simple and just focusing on what that organization, what their total receipts are. Was there any feedback on that? And this wouldn't be for this funding cycle, but for the next one. So we would have an opportunity to further tweak or adjust if, for example, the worksheet that Orange County uses, if we need to modify that, we have some time. Not seeing any concerns, so I will take that as a comfort with that approach. All right, thank you. The next one is regarding reporting requirements. So we wanted to make sure that the report that we ask agencies to complete is manageable, that it's not asking too much, but still balancing that with accountability and having some sort of end of the year report from the agencies who have received funding. So I included a draft within the agenda packet of a report template for you all to consider and provide feedback on. The Orange County's outside agency program requires quarterly reports on performance objectives and financial receipts in order to receive those funding disbursements. We felt like annual would be kind of maybe most manageable for agencies and the amount that they're receiving. But certainly if there's any feedback related to the report itself or the frequency, then you all can share that at this time.
And they would get this like at the end of the funding cycle, or when would you want to get this feedback from them?
So I had included September 1st as a date that would give them enough time to compile everything together from the previous fiscal year. But if there was, and then they would have access to it ahead of time to know what they're kind of expected to submit on.
And I assumed if what they asked the funds for was like a really specific short-term project that they could, after they do the project, they could just go ahead and turn in, depending on what the metrics were.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and turn it in before September 1st.
Yep, definitely.
And I would assume also that if they were to reapply, even if not for the same thing, that if they didn't turn in this report, they wouldn't be eligible.
Yeah, I think we had included maybe some language that it could impact their future ability to get funding.
I'm constantly looking at ways to, my organization makes grants and trying to find ways to make sure we get our data back.
Incentive.
Some things are very effective, so you may not get funding again.
But there's if the report is due September 1st, but July is the fiscal year, then you have applicant A, they finish up July first. It's too late for them to ask, they would, so it automatically would be a skip year because they can't ask for the next year because they haven't reported. So if we're requiring that they report in order to get funding. So they apply, let's say they apply for this coming July 2026. Their report's not due until September 2027. But they would be applying, say, April 2026 for the April 27 for the July 27. But they're not gonna get that report until September 27. But if they're not eligible for funding, then you see what I'm saying?
No.
I see what you're saying, the timing of maybe off, and we may award a grant that's for a year-long process, so they're not even done using the money. And
Exactly,
the report is due,
yeah.
or the application is due. So,
I mean, yes, I agree, they have to get the report in, but the way we're asking for it.
maybe-
wouldn't be so
Maybe it
immediate.
needs to be a preliminary report at some point, and then.
Yes.
Report due.
Exactly, something
within
like
90
preliminary,
days of the year.
and we have ability, if they don't ever do the final, that we can pull that money or something along those lines. Yeah. Thank you, thank you, because it's like,
Yeah. Matt, does that make sense? You look skeptical.
I could draw it better than I can say it.
And then Emily mentioned that we don't typically cut checks until August or September, so one option would be to just hold the check disbursement if they have not submitted their prior years.
Well, see, that's why I was like, it doesn't have to work the way that Commissioner Ferguson is explaining, because if they're coming back for funding a second time or a third time, they close their books June 30th, our fiscal year is July 1st. They're likely not only closing their June books, but also the entire previous year and doing what they need to do on that front. They would probably be done sometime in the month of August, just to be cautious. And if we allocate money to them again, it would just be on hold until they turn in that report. If they never turn in the report, they don't get the money. And then if they come back another year and ask and say, yeah, we know we messed up, and they still don't do the report, they probably just wouldn't be eligible, period. I mean, I
right,
think it would be incumbent upon them to turn that report around pretty quickly, and knowing how our tourism board operates, it kind of is required to turn these things in to get the money even after it's been appropriated. So I don't think someone would automatically miss out on the whole year.
well, not necessarily, but when we're making the decision. We have no, if they're asking for funding for the next
It's
year,
an easy decision for me.
there is no report because it's not due for another 6 months. So that preliminary report would at least be able to give us for something to base a decision on. Because otherwise, a criteria, it's impossible for them to meet.
Not if they want the money.
Well, no, if it's a year-long if they're asking money for a year. And then next year, whatever, but I still think we need to have a preliminary report.
Jim, is that tracking with you?
I guess just a little more clarity on the preliminary report. Is that something that the board is interested? We can also come like.
Well, if they're
discuss
asking money for
sequencing.
a second year,
Mhm.
I'd absolutely want a preliminary report. Something to go by, tell us how you use
Like
the
a
money.
mid-year check-in,
Sorry?
like a mid-year check-in.
Since they haven't done anything, if they're planning like their
You don't-
event or whatever is at the second half of the year, what's the preliminary report even gonna report?
I think you could doing this professionally, you could easily, if it's someone asking for additional funds and they're currently a grantee, that the interim report wouldn't be this full report form. It would literally just be just the year-to-date actuals on the grant of what's been spent. And if it was any sort of cost share, you know, did they get the extra funding from individual donors or other community partners? Just how has it worked out? I just worked on an interim financial report for a multi-year grant. So I think you could use that kind of idea if, you know, they already have an active grant currently.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
But that would just be a checklist item. I don't think necessarily we would get into the weeds unless they don't use a certain amount, but maybe it's, or they haven't used maybe what they should have to that point, at which point they would have the ability to say, you know, yeah, it took us a long time to find a contractor to help us do something, or, you know, Chantal messed up our plans and so we lost 3 months or something. It would give them some ability to explain if they're asking for more funds too.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right. The next thing on the list was, the 501 nonprofit designation.
Why would we do a C4?
So we currently have an agency that has, the 501c4.
Is it, who's this? It's not uncommon for a C3 to also have a C4. But why would we fund a C4 specifically?
So I think that's what they had as their designation. So the difference between the two are I'm sure you know.
It's political advocacy.
The social welfare groups that do allow, limited lobbying, political candidacy advocacy, tax donations are not tax.
Because a lot of the PACs are C4s.
And so I think that was just to kind of allow the ones that have currently, yep. Mark.
My question is, I think we discussed this last year,
Mhm.
but I don't recall what we landed on. I know Matt had some comments on C4, and I think maybe the chamber was an example, maybe. of
No,
C4.
chamber is C6.
So I know we had a discussion on this, but. So are you, the C4, 501c4 that's included in this document today is based on our discussion last year?
No,
or is
last
this a
year.
New thing.
New thing. So, I think the last discussion was coming back and discussing like which of the, different designations, 501s would be allowable rather than, and then there was the question of like, some do this, some do that. And so this was to allow all the agencies that are currently being funded to continue. If we chose to go the route of just allowing the C3s, I believe they would just have to have a fiscal sponsor.
If the C3 is a fiscal sponsor, I mean, they can, or rather it can serve as its own fiscal sponsor. But what C4 would we be supporting right now?
It's the Exchange Club.
There's C4?
Yeah, I have their letter right here.
Yeah, Cubscats would be C4. Because they do a ton of. I am leery of having C4s because they're,
Specifically.
you know, those are PACs. I want to be able to support Exchange Club, and I think there's ways we can, but I don't want to open up the floodgates to C4s.
Just because they have that status doesn't mean they'll get funded. They have to have it has to have a benefit for those people either, right?
I mean, we ultimately would get the final say though, so not traditional PACs or 527s, they're not 501c4s, but so-called super PACs or 501c4s. But knowing that there are civic leagues and not just social welfare organizations, which is typically what that super PAC is called, a social welfare organization. I mean, we would ultimately get to decide, so they can apply, but we can say no.
True. I don't wanna I don't want to mislead.
Yeah, and I think their intention is, that, you know, obviously to include Exchange Club as previous organizations.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I mean, there's ways to. But I just don't wanna mislead C4s that,
I think, oh,
Mirror Mark.
Yeah, I think if we just promoted the idea in our materials that 501c4s with an overwhelming purpose of social benefit to Hillsborough, then I think that announces what our intention is, but I agree, yeah, there are some 501c4s I would never envision us wanting to sponsor, but I wouldn't want to preclude them, so as long as we set the expectation in the application process on our website, I think that might help. But, and Matt is correct, we get the board gets the last say on what this.
well, and I think that one thing that could clear up a lot, not just what the mayor just said, but also, you know, 501c3s can and do engage in political activity as well. And so maybe just making clear that the mission of the organization is predominantly of a non-political nature. Because we also wouldn't necessarily probably want to fund a 501c3 that wants to take on voter registration in the town of Hillsborough, because that definitely would seem a little self-serving if we give someone a grant to go register, you know, our own electorate. That probably would just feel weird and something we wouldn't really consider. So I think if we just make clear that the mission of these organizations is of a non-political nature, I think people will self-select and not apply.
Thanks, some head nods, so we will take that forward. All right, so now, moving on to phase 3, we had discussed, creating some sort of, not rubric, but sort of a framework, if you will, that would help, the board as you're weighing the applications that come before you. And so we put together, some, criteria borrowing from the tourism board process on their criteria, making some tweaks to fit this program. And created a scoring guide that would sort of allow you to have, it wouldn't be the final say, like if it's not like it's totally based on the rankings, but as to be able to have those conversations and go into those meetings with the nonprofit with some sort of framework to help guide that of what you're looking for in what you're funding, and then a place to really jot down those questions that you may have for the nonprofits when they come to speak, and additional comments. And so the idea would be that we would have you all complete these, collect them ahead of time, distribute amongst the board, and then have that be sort of the starting place for the conversation with the nonprofits.
2 things. One, where you have the X's, what does that really mean?
That just means that there's nothing within that particular criteria, so there's no distinct, there's a, it just goes from 5 to 3.
So in
in
other
that
words, a
case,
duplicate. it's
4 and
duplicate.
2 wouldn't be.
Yeah, no one would get a 4 or a 2 in that, and for that particular category.
Oh, okay, I see, yeah, so it's just a continuation.
It just.
I still think we need to have something that addresses, we talk about meeting town objectives, we talk about community impact, but there's nothing that about our most vulnerable. You know, it gets back to,
Community impact?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I mean, there's community impact. You know, an unmet need, you know, it's very clear, but it's not explicit, it's just whatever. And I'm just thinking ahead of the way funding is going. And greater demands at local level, especially for our most vulnerable.
Definitely may I offer a friendly.
Absolutely.
So my first comment was going to be about how the funding should totally be driven by the town objectives. That should come first. And shouldn't that be the highest percentage of anything? Right? We operate with a comprehensive sustainability plan. Everything flows from that plan. So our giving should be too. So that is the place.
I'm glad, that was gonna come next.
So we could put that as, you know, the guiding principle
Absolutely.
as part of that.
But thank you for that, because I don't have to mention that.
I'm just curious, Jen, you may not have ever analyzed the past, applications this way, but have there been applications for things that were so completely outside the scope of what our strategic priorities are? That we said, wow, what about that? That's different. That's not part of our objectives. I wonder if we should fund this.
Yeah, nothing's coming to mind. It's generally been the same couple of groups every year. So you've seen those come in year after year, with the exception of a couple of new ones last year. Yeah, nothing stands out as like totally out there and left.
I agree with you, Mark. I think, and I'm not sure how the percentages were created, but I think our town objectives should have a larger percentage or weight, I guess.
So, yeah, we can certainly adjust those percentages, increase the one for town objectives. Is there one that you felt like was too high that would need to be bumped down to accommodate that increase?
I was thinking about the fiscal response, or fiscal sustainability.
Okay.
I don't know if the organization comes together as a 501(c)(3) and has a great idea that fits everything else, but that's all they came to do was just that one thing, and then they were gonna disband. They might get 0 on there. So I don't know if 15% seemed a little high for me when I first read that one. I'm sure if an organization would do all that work to do that, but.
I don't necessarily know what they should be. Maybe that's you all.
Yeah.
But I did really like, I guess the guide, the scoring guide, so I think it's very helpful. I think it's clear and it gives us, objective ways to score and judge it, so, you know, it's done well.
Feedback. Did others feel that something like this would be helpful as you're
It's
weighing
one
the
of those, I think,
applications?
once you do the math and see what really, how things work mathematically versus does it pass the sniff test?
For the tourism board.
You know, I think it's worth, you know, anytime, you know, it's other projects that we have, it's, you know, go through that and then the massaging because it just doesn't pass the sniff test. Which is why I'm not gonna get quibbled too much on the percentages, other than I agree that what needs to be upfront before anything is our objectives. You know, it's just, it's worth. It's worth,
Yes, Mayor
I
Martin.
do think having the objectives going bad is a good idea, and keeping it simple is also probably a good idea. It's informative and helps everybody kind of keep it in guardrails and stay focused on what the requests are and because we, at the end of the day, you know, recommendations by staff to the board on which ones are deserving of funding and in what order, and those kinds of things are, that's important. So it's an objective to this worthwhile.
Yeah, and it's something that we can always, kind of start with something and then adjust as we go, as we try it out. See if there's other things that need to be modified down the road, just, wanting to create some sort of starting point for you all,
Well, if anything, it really will help us focus our discussion. But we could all probably read the same application and give someone a 5 and someone else a 5 even an option? Yeah, a 5 and someone else under something, maybe it's budget and finance and someone thinks that's a great one and then someone else said it's insufficient, then have to talk it out about why we came with those kind of conclusions. But I don't think the rubric in and of itself is anything more than a discussion guide, just because we're not just gonna total this up and then that's the decision, we're done, we're gonna talk it out a little bit.
anything else related? Yes.
We're not really with the rubric anymore. But I was wondering about the proof of insurance. Is that something that you're gonna ask for or not ask for? And if we don't ask for it, what kind of liability does it come out? Sideways.
I don't believe we ask for a certificate of insurance. We just do when we're contracting with a vendor that's gonna be like coming on site or working directly, kind of, on site, but, sure, Bob can speak to.
Depends on what the activity of the nonprofit is. But like I said, we're gonna do something on site, or if we are gonna be actively engaged somehow with the nonprofit. We might wanna have insurance, want them to have insurance. If they're going to be doing a road racing in the streets, normally it's the applicant who provides that kind of insurance for that.
So the county requires nonprofits to have director and officer insurance before they're funded. And that's kind of where I was thinking, was more, not so much, you know, somebody twists an ankle during an event of that director and officer. Sure.
That's a good idea for the nonprofit. I mean, we as the town don't really care whether their officers have insurance, I think.
And that's mainly my question is, yeah, it's a good idea for a nonprofit to have it, but if they don't have it, is that a disqualifier? Because you know, some nonprofits that, you know, get an award for $2,000 and their insurance costs $1,500. So, look. I wanted to pose the question now.
I think it would be similar to probably the same sort of financial trigger that the CPA or you know, the table that they would fill out instead, that if you're above a certain amount, then we would want to see D&O insurance, but below that, we're less concerned. And maybe something, take it a step further in the contract, just making sure that there's any way we can, in the contract, have us released of any sort of claim or whatever, that we have that covered as well. Because I wouldn't, let's just say someone comes to us and they want to fund a trip for underprivileged kids to Grandfather Mountain, and then some kid jumps off the swinging bridge and the parents say, well, town of Hillsborough paid for the trip. If it wasn't for them, my kid would be alive. I wouldn't want us to be.
Yeah, we could have
wrapped up in
releases and
that.
waivers and indemnification clauses, and I mean, there's where you can contractually limit the liability.
But that's not meant, we're not, you know, because they're facilitating that trip. They're
Doesn't stop someone from trying.
Yeah, we can certainly look at the contract language, the agreement that we, have with the nonprofits. And tweak some language on there. All right, well, for the FY 27 process, nonprofits will be scheduled to present at the April work session. And as part of the kickoff, we let them know that they would have 3 minutes to be able to provide an overview of their request. And then board members, that you all would have an opportunity to ask questions. In the past, we hadn't had a formal presentation set aside, but we found that some agencies would come and have a presentation, they would sign up to present, and then others who hadn't prepared anything felt like they needed to also come up and share something. And so that way everyone just has an knows kind of upfront that they have a brief amount of time.
5 minutes, you know, we've gone to this 3-minute thing very recently. We used to not do that. We're still small enough that I don't think we need to do the Chapel Hill 3. I would like to have a balance so that we're not here all night, but please give it 5 minutes.
That's a board call.
Yep.
So Kathleen, I would support that notion, and also to limit the slides to 10, because sometimes people get kind of.
Well, if it's 5 minutes, I don't care if they have 400, you got 5 minutes to do it. If you wanna fly by, rock and roll, then.
All right, so 5 minutes, limit to around 10 slides,
Up to.
up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't wanna limit the number of slides, it's still 5 minutes.
As a guy,
Well, common sense is.
I've seen too many people that have come in with, 30 slide presentations with, limited amount of time, and they feel they need to get through all those slides.
Yeah, well, they ain't gonna happen in 5 minutes.
We'll deduct $500 for every minute.
Scoring goes down 1 point.
All right,
Okay.
well, thank you for the
Thank you,
feedback.
Awesome. Can I suggest we take maybe a 5-minute stretch break before we go into the next item, because we have other items beyond this. So let's take a time.
I mean, that's gonna eat my 500 slide deck.
No, we used to talk about that when I was, I had to, review the slides for, physicians when they were presenting for the. So, they have how. Go live.
Great. Yeah, that's a whole other. Yeah, just really actually back.
This is for CBA series.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, is that really? Yeah, you've read the notes. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. My name's Chris Johnston. I am the current IT manager for the town of Hillsborough. I started in October, mid-October, so I only have a few more years to go. I've been here for 14 years. I went to college at UNC Chapel Hill. This gentleman right here, not me, but same place. I've been here for 14 years. I am a Hillsborough 101, Government 101 graduate. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's caused that program to be. I am a direct consequence, so take that as you will. I am a former Hillsborough Planning Board member and chair, so I remember sitting right there and Bob giving me the golden nuggets every time you had a question, anything legal. So it was just taking me back, Bob. Thank you. And I'm a professional amateur sumo wrestler. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. So moving through, I have come onto the state of Hillsborough IT, and we have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I'm not going to read them to you because they are already laid out. But we're going to go through them real quick and go through them one at a time. We have a lot of things going on. Our cup overfloweth with things to do. There are a lot of things that need to be done. I reiterate that because every one of them is important and every one of them takes time and effort and is going to be a focus. So let's jump right into it. Trim the fat. So budgets being what they are, we want to make sure that when we purchase software, when we purchase equipment, when we purchase anything, that we're actually going to use it. We also are already paying for things like phones, internet, software that we're not using anymore. If we can cut that out, that's a savings right there. It's just basically free money. We want to make sure we're doing that intelligently, though. We want to make sure that we're not cutting things that we actually are using. I will own that I went through and removed Wi-Fi hotspots, and then suddenly I didn't have a spare one to give out for Chantal, so we had to go around and find one. So we want to make sure that we're not going overboard with things like that. Buying in bulk, we want to make sure that as we're purchasing technology, as we're purchasing laptops, as we're purchasing anything, that we do so with the mind of buying in such a way that we are squeezing every discount possible out. And making sure that we have what we have and that we're using it. So we have a number of tools in place that, you know, we may not be fully utilizing, and just making sure that we have training in place for our employees to be able to use what they have. Server rooms. So I'm the IT guy. It is my job to make sure that the server rooms where all the zeros and ones come into the building are taken care of. We have some problems that we need to rectify. So some of our server rooms are in a state where we need to clean them up just a little bit. I actually love the shag carpeting in this one. This one really is one of my favorite. And so this is important. I touched base with this Commissioner English and I spoke in regards to making sure that we have good physical security. If these places overheat, if they're unlocked, we can do all the cybersecurity training, everything like that that we want to do. But if we're not taking care of what we have, then it's not going to matter. So some work to be done there. In that same vein, we're going to have, we already have a physical security working group that we put together. And you might say, IT, what do you care about physical security? Again, I reiterate, if someone comes, opens a door that isn't locked, there's no camera to watch them do it as they undo a server and take it with them. It doesn't matter. So we really need to make sure that that's there. There's a lot of opportunities, and this has come up in, I believe, the employee survey in regards to things like physical safety and security and making sure that our employees and our assets are safe and taken care of. So big focus in that regard. Security best practices. We have some things that we need to clean up. We have some security policies in place that need to be updated or addressed that make sure that our town is safe, secure, and not being taken advantage of in the cybersecurity sense. And so we want to make sure that we are able to, you know, audit server access. We want to make sure that we have best practices in place so that users can do their job without necessarily giving them too much access that then causes security issues down the line. And again, coming back to just organization-wide training and making sure that everyone knows what they have. AI framework. I know this is near and dear to some of our hearts, but we are working towards a Hillsborough AI framework. I am standing on the shoulders of giants from my predecessor's work, for the work that some of our other colleagues have done. I'm also looking towards the NCDIT, so the Department of Information Technology, for their framework tools. And then we're going to work to put together and craft with the support of
all the different departments to create a AI framework that allows us to utilize some of these cool new tools while doing so in a way that is best for town. Training is going to be a big critical part of this. This is still new for a lot of us. This is a new kind of tool and it has all kinds of implications, and we want to make sure that as we're using these kind of tools that we're doing it in a way that is smart, safe, and secure. So more to come on that. Fiber rollout. So this has actually been a can that's been kicked around a little bit here with the board specifically. So I wanted to do a quick overview on fiber. So just briefly, fiber is how internet is coming into our building. So it could be from a copper cable. Fiber is actually more light-based and it's faster and more secure and does all kinds of fun things. The board has identified this as a priority, and there's a couple of reasons. It's faster. There is a locked-in price. There's reliability. Scalability, security, all kinds of fun things that come along with a fiber rollout. But things have changed a little bit here in the town. So I don't know if you guys know this, I'm sure you already do. Google Fiber, other vendors have been coming in lately, putting in fiber of their own. There's cost associated with building out our own fiber. And like I said, there's just additional options available for us to take a look at. So this is the plan that I have inherited, and this is one that we have been working with the North Carolina Department of Information Technology to put together that creates a fiber loop in town. And so the red line that you see there is the initial rollout of a fiber project as it is currently designed. We do not have quotes, we do not have numbers, we don't have anything other than this drawing and the initial rollout. So there is prior work that has been done on the fiber project, but this is where it currently stands. You'll notice that there is an initial phase, and then there are spokes that come out to the different sites. In the community center, my face is actually over the Highway 86 building. You'll see the train stations on there, as well as the wastewater treatment plant and Adrian Thompson. Bryant, the town engineer, has been gracious enough to tell me whenever he swings by all the different things that could be potential roadblocks for something like this. The topography, the hydrology, and all kinds of fun going on with the train station and the trains and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of things that we have to consider as we're going through this project. And that's part of the reason why I bring up some of the changes that have occurred with other vendors being in town. So we're exploring all possibilities in terms of what this project looks like moving forward. Is it something that the town continues to do, or are we looking towards third-party vendor options? So, and then there's new construction projects. So we have Adrian Thompson, we have the Highway 86 building. We're making sure that we are taking care of everything IT related for those two construction projects. Steps Trueblood and Bryant Green have been great in terms of helping onboard me to where we are and then taking us through where we need to be. So lots of fun there to make sure that when we build these buildings that we're not coming into already having IT needs. So we blew through a lot there. I do apologize for that, but I will take any questions you might have. This is a broad status update, but wanted to make sure that if there was anything that we should go into more depth on, that I had an opportunity to talk through it with you.
Thank you, Chris. What I'd like to do is go around the table.
Yeah, sure.
Commissioners, Matt, do you want to start? Do you have any questions?
Wonderful.
So I had a couple of just wanted to mention a few things to make sure it's in kind of in your scope of on your radar for your work plan for the next year and things like that. And that is that I think, we have 10 years of experience working with is it Computabilities? The vendor. So do we have multiple vendors for services, or are we all in with just one service provider?
So to take that apart a little bit, we have a managed service provider. They provide support for the town so that it's not just me running to the 10 different buildings. They provide certain services in regards to quotes for networking equipment or for security services, but they're not the stop all be all for IT services. So if, for instance, we get our Adobe products from Adobe Direct or things along those lines. So they are a part of our arsenal, but they are not the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay, that's helpful. And also, I think we've had over the years, we've had a couple of conversations about AI. So I think there are quite a few of us who are interested in what policies we might have around use and what I guess what's more important to me is some of these products want access to all your data to be able to use the product effectively, and I always say, no way. Am I gonna, give you full access to my emails and spreadsheets and documents and things like that, so. Kind of those secondary, access rights will be really important from my perspective. Yeah, training is really important, policies and procedures that the town creates. About acceptable use and reporting of incidents and, all those kinds of things, being pretty important.
Absolutely.
As well as privacy, security, and especially, email training, spam, awareness and those kinds of things would be pretty important.
Yeah, email
And
that.
does Computabilities do, penetration testing and, full audit? Do they offer those as services? That the town-
So they provide a certain level of overview in regards to, they have automated tests that they do. They do have different services that are part and parcel to managing and maintaining. So for instance, email overviews and things like that. In terms of a full-blown audit, I do not believe that they have done a full-blown audit in regards to having someone come in and do a penetration test where they're attempting to identify all the issues therein. So that I do not believe has gone through yet. I could be mistaken. Again, I'm still unearthing, so.
Could they do a phishing test recently?
If they define recently,
In the last couple weeks?
no, please report that to me.
Don't
Don't click on it.
Something
Don't
that
do
really
it.
clearly looked like phishing, and I'm like, why did this get through the spam filter?
Yes, seriously though, let's touch base. Any further questions?
Yeah, and security auditing, I guess that's really kind of bundled in. So, thank you. And I just want to say, I appreciate your observations about physical, security. Back in the day, one of the projects I worked on, representing the healthcare space was, we partnered with Department of Labor, and we created a 2-year community college curriculum and certification examinations that really focused on hardening infrastructure. I represented healthcare, but there was also education, power and utilities. It was a very broad spectrum, and it took a year to do all that. And we worked with psychometricians to build exams. But the physical aspect was really important.
Right.
So thank you for paying attention.
And I want to be clear too, in terms of a security audit, I would strongly feel that until we address the things that we know are wrong right now, I wouldn't necessarily feel that a security audit would be the right way to go until we've addressed some of the more glaring issues. So, thank you. Of course.
Ready?
I don't have any questions right now.
If you have them later, I'm happy to take them.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I don't have, you're gonna be shocked, I don't have any questions right now.
Not even about AI?
She's been passing notes this whole time.
I've been passing notes, and I will have a list that's this long that I will do afterwards.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner English?
Yes, couple questions. So I think you kind of addressed this, but I'm not sure. And it may just be, what are the best options, but I think you alluded to potentially the opportunity to have a town-wide fiber network.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to go into more detail on that?
No, I just want to make sure that was an option. But can you tell us a little bit more?
So hold on. When you say town-wide, I want to be clear that the plan as is currently written.
That's not town-wide.
It's not town-wide in so much as, and I want to be clear about this. We're talking about town of Hillsborough government buildings. We are not talking about providing fiber to residents.
Which is legally prohibited.
Right, exactly. I want to be very clear about this. What we're talking about in the NCDIT plan, or when we talk through going through vendors, is putting our government buildings onto a fiber loop rather than where Adrian Thompson right now has a download speed of 300 and an upload speed of like 10. So, trying to get them to somewhere around the 2015, 2016 internet speed timeframe.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Orange County's rollout of above ground fiber, and is that something that?
I can
Why?
tell you that they are doing that. I would actually direct you to Mr. Brian Green. He is over here with the engineering team, and he is actually on that panel, as I understand it, and would have more information.
Yeah, so in short, Orange County, had a plan to do a similar, setup to what, we currently have in our CIP, which is to connect their facilities with buried fiber, trenched in fiber, starting up at their Justice Center and then going all the way downtown. Now, they had a little bit of different requirements than what Chris would do without getting too nerdy about it, but, you know, because of the prison and some other justice facilities, they have a higher level of security that's required and a higher level of redundancy that's required because people are, I guess, being held or incarcerated. Anyway, so they had to do, I think, a triple conduit bore to put in their fiber network. And they got about 200 yards and gave up. The rock, the good thing about Hillsborough is we've only got one rock. The bad thing is it's Hillsborough sized. So they ran into rock and they quickly ran out of steam. So they kind of had to abandon the boring plan and instead pivot to an aerial plan. And what they do there is they actually lease space from telephone, on telephone poles around town. So the top of the poles are all power, the bottom of the poles are all Spectrum and Brightspeed, and like basically they lease space from the power company who owns the pole. So Orange County spent probably 18 months signing an agreement with Duke Power to trim the trees so that the third-party fiber could be installed and lashed to the existing poles, and then upgrading poles and moving poles to meet Duke standards for second-party or third-party carriers. So they had to go through all that, and they're now just starting, you probably see them downtown, they're just starting the tree trimming phase of that program, which would then pivot to them doing the pole mounted program.
Are we planning on Gary?
So, on the plans that we have currently with NCDIT, yes, the idea would be to bury them. And there are a lot of reasons for that, as Brian alluded to. But currently our plans are to go underground. I will reiterate that that is one solution, and another solution is, again, us working with outside vendors and seeing what that looks like in terms of already buried lines and taking advantage of the work that has already been done. You know, there are costs associated with going both ways. Some of them are capital and, you know, some of them are operating expenses. Just trying to figure out which one makes the most sense for our town and our budget and our needs. So
Last time I asked this question, state level, I got the resounding no, but I still ask. DOT, because 60% of their fiber, it's dark. Is there any hope of feedbacking and utilizing their fiber? Especially given how many of our streets and looking at our loop.
sure.
It would be a beautiful solution.
So I'm not gonna tell you something I don't have the answer for, but I'm happy to take a look at that.
I mean, last time at state level, they were saying no, but they're being pushed by municipalities across the state of opening up.
It certainly could be one of the options we're looking to as we go down that path. It's just, you know, one of many. Another option is we simply don't, right? But there are ramifications to not going with a fiber solution of any sort, and our users are already going through what that is. So,
I would hate for us to be in a position where the entire time being Brightspeed and Google buried fiber and the town not, and when a tree down, we lose our fiber and the rest of town working.
Right.
That would be embarrassing.
Commissioner English, did you have any other questions?
No, I think I think that was really wrong.
If you do, was that a hand of, you need to know?
I just want to make a comment.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
So we've been talking about this and acting on it for years now, but you're new to this, so I'll just let you know. So I serve on a statewide broadband network for healthcare. We have over 5,000 miles of fiber and 400 points on that network. And I'd be happy to share my experience with you, who we partnered with, which was MCNC, to actually run the network and connect people. So I can tell you about the benefits of a private fiber network and resiliency and low latency and all that stuff versus partnering with existing fiber companies and creating a virtual fiber network based on fiber.
Right.
Underground.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will retreat to my seat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I know some, we're also using NC Engine,
Sorry.
also using NC Engine on that, it's the on the academia, yeah.
So the NC Ren,
I haven't heard NC Run, but I've only.
this connects all the universities.
I just know about NC
It's that
Engine.
number.
Maybe the same.
We're carrying. Okay, next. Parking lot.
I was just looking up there, we had the, some like minor things, HVAC replacement, location details. Health insurance information, we just follow up with the board, in general.
I'm just making note.
Is there anything else? I don't think we have any major things.
So you mentioned, in your manager's, budget message, something about the employees giving you like there's creep happening in their eyes. Is there any specifics that you capture or talk about? Then any of the employees put in their survey? Yeah, this is the creep.
No, I'd say that it's a very frequent comment. I'll have to, and one of the things also about the survey that's, very helpful. That's one example. A lot of times folks will say, oh, I'm concerned about this, but then there's no specifics. So I will try to give more examples and get back to you.
Wondering if
Good
we're gonna be
question.
tight, but
Yeah.
where are they seeing, like, I'm spending time here and I really, that's not part of my mission critical stuff, so.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Eric, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, hot topics. There's only one thing listed in the agenda. That is our part 2 of this meeting, at our work session on the 25th. Eric, is there anything else?
We'll have a funding request from CASA to support their Cedar Village project. That'll be on the agenda for the workshop.
Thank you. Okay, on to updates. Board members, Matt, can we start with you?
Sure.
And can you tell us, start with your assignments and then part 2 is anything else we wanna update for on this?
I think since didn't have our last meeting, so I believe the only thing that I have had since our January 12th meeting was our Visitors Bureau meeting. Welcomed some new members, Carborough and Chapel Hill both named 2 new members to replace departing members, or in case of Chapel Hill, they just switched up their committee assignments. But it was a pretty good meeting. The biggest part was just around America 250, and that the county is producing a book that the Visitors Bureau is in part funding, which tells the full history of people who've lived here in Orange County, and not just those circa the colonial era, but all the way to the present. And I think it's going to be a pretty neat book that will be released. I don't believe I've had any other meetings scheduled since then. I know you'll cover the TPO meeting, Mayor Mark, and then we were supposed to have the Orange Care Coalition, but like Commissioners Dara, Ferguson, and English, that was the same day as the Habitat for Humanity Housing Summit, which I also attended. So that's my report.
Good. Thank you. Had a couple of updates. Yeah, like you said, it's covering a whole month of time instead of just 2 weeks. I attended a couple of Orange County Veterans Memorial. We'll go chronological. Orange County Veterans Memorial Committee meetings. They're still interested in being funded for a couple more years. They're working on a 4th phase of their project, and that is to bring power to the site. I had the pleasure of going to the Leadership Chapel graduation for Megan and Rob and everybody else, and I got roped into helping send out the certificates at the end, so I didn't know it was going to be instituted, but that was fun. And then spoke at the MLK celebration at Mount Bright on the 19th. It was a great program. It's always very inspiring to meet all the folks who are very involved in that event. Went to the Orange County Quarterly Luncheon with NC DOT on the 20th and got updates from everybody, Matt and Stephanie. They were there as well. I spoke to the Small Town USA class. If you recall, many of you had participated in the Small Town USA, and they had received a grant from the either the Tourist Board or TDA, I forget which, but helped them pick out projects in Hillsborough to document over the spring semester. And then attended the Triangle West TPO meeting on the 27th. Had elections for officers for the coming year. Oh, and I did have a meeting with the mayors and chair. So Mayor Jess, Mayor Barbara, myself and Gene Hamilton, who's the new chair of the Orange County Board of Commissioners. We had our first quarterly meeting. It got snowed out, so we did it by Zoom. I guess the big takeaway from that meeting is that there has been movement around transportation funding options that the General Assembly seems to be in favor of granting, either for a municipality, a county, or a region. So there'll be future conversations about, probably along with Orange County and Triangle West TPO, as well as the capital area MPO, what kind of options there might be for more coordinated transportation projects funded through this new mechanism to allow for transportation taxes. So that is to be determined over the next 6 months, 9 months, how to kind of proceed with that. And finally, on this past Saturday, attended the WCHL Hometown Heroes Luncheon. Sheriff Blackwood gave a speech, and I had the pleasure of being honored, as well as attending on behalf of the town of Hillsborough. So I did double duty there. It was a nice event. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Just a couple updates. Mayor Bell already mentioned the leadership graduation. Rob and I can call ourselves now fellows with you also, Mayor Bell. I did a ride along with Sergeant Solomon a couple Fridays ago, which was great. It was a quiet night in Hillsborough, so nothing exciting, which is good. I was glad of that. And then this last week was the Habitat for Humanity Affordable Housing Summit with Commissioner Hughes already mentioning that. And then the tourism board was canceled, but we'll be rescheduling that. I'll be updated.
So the local government affordable housing collaborative was canceled, didn't meet there. With the partnership, there, the NOFA it was released, pulled back, released, pulled back. It's been released again. They're in a mad scramble. And then for Central Pines, we've got Regional Day, February 20th. I hope everyone attends. It's going to be very good. Just got back from National Association of Regional Councils. Mentioned that while we were there, passed the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Bill. That's nice, home funds, they got money there. What's really exciting is the 21st Century. It's the 21st Century Act, which is housing, which it's very similar to the Road to Housing Act, which was once House, one Senate. The Road Act is primarily deregulation and financing. 21st Century is got some of the highlights of 21st Century, which is like everything else. There's really some cool things and some things that we'll have to give pause. Pause is looking at pattern development, pre-approved pattern books of development. They're looking at incentives on land use regulations, as in not moving them out. the NEPA, which is the environmental, they're looking at if you've had one, if you've had a recent federal, you don't need to do more for infill units of like 4 units, so cutting some of those regulations. The big push is local government on developing housing, and this is one of the difference is road had repairs. 21st Century is all new units, who knows what will happen. But one of the things is having home funds being allowed to be used for folks up to 120% AMI. The kicker is North Carolina caps it at 80%. HUD says that feds will supersede state. Of course, we don't know what North Carolina will say about that. The other thing that gives pause, they're not getting any more money, so it actually still compresses more. If we were to do that, it's fewer funds for those that we, in our jurisdiction, have very little. So it's one of those good and bad. Manufactured housing, really working on the financing to allow for more consumer finance options. They're removing some of the barriers for real estate financing, for mobile home, modular housing. So there's a bunch of stuff, and that is already passed the Senate. It's supposed to come to House vote any day now, like. So that's really cool. Mentioned earlier about the community project funding, the staffers across the House and Senate, both sides of the aisle, that deadline on FY26 closed, FY27 opened. It's March, so it's a very fast turnaround. It's election year. They want to see those requests. They want to give out and earmarks, always get the earmarks because the earmarks are not being contested. Also, the league's town and state dinner, we're being invited to Greensboro. That announcement came out. So if you have not gotten your invitation, look in your email. So Sarah, is there a way for us all to register if we're interested?
Probably, haven't looked at it.
I'll send it to you if you're not, but everyone should have that in their box. Also, I got appointed for National League of Cities, their Community and Economic Development Committee. Don't know what that's gonna look like yet, but I'll find out. And that's something that we are NLC members. Anyone can participate. They do have a range of committees. Matt and Mark, AMPO is something that you may be involved with because they split off from NARC. They focus on transportation, bridges, infrastructure, things like that. They would be of interest at the national level. I also did attend the Habitat Summit, and I have a note here that I can't read my own writing. And so it must not be important, but those are the highlights. Although transportation, we did visit the transportation system for DC area. It's kind of cool. They are working on, they've gotten funding for modernization. On one hand, it's very cool. It will be more modern. The bad news is that, when you're using vacuum tubes and that sort of thing, you can't hack that. But it was nice. If you're a geek, it was really cool being face up and hearing the clicks and such of the decision making. It was kind of cool.
Thank you. Rob.
I don't really have a report other than Parks and Recreation Board is still working on Kings Highway Park master plan and talk about some connectivity trail stuff last month in January, and I'll continue that discussion next week, and hopefully vote to adopt new revised master plan. for the town.
Thank you. Okay. Here, anything yet?
No report.
Staff reports from the packet. There's no additional business before the board. We will take a quick recess. And then I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Oh, you want that now on closed session?
Yes.
Move to go into closed session.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions? Okay, great.